You'd be forgiven for not knowing that ASUS makes phones, a company renowned for its graphics cards and motherboards, but the truth is they've been making phones for a long time, since the Windows Mobile era, in fact. In 2014, ASUS introduced the Zenfone lineup, and in March of this year they released the Zenfone 2. The Zenfone 2 is their current flagship, and it comes in two versions, one for $199 and the other for $299. But what if you don't want to shell out $200 for hardware you don't absolutely need? What if you want a phone with a premium feel, good build quality, and adequate hardware, all at a lower price point? So long as you're okay using AT&T's network, the ASUS Zenfone 2E is an overall good phone for its price point, but with some caveats. The 2E has a 5-inch display with a resolution of 1280 by 720 and a pixel density of 294 ppi. Blacks are nice and dark, but out of the box, my phone's display looked too cool with a slight blue hue. Luckily, the 2E ships with ASUS's splendid software that lets you adjust the display's temperature, brightness, and contrast within the Android settings menu. It also comes with an ambient light sensor to automatically adjust the display's brightness. The display is bright enough to be clearly visible in direct sunlight, and is sharp enough so that reading text is easy, and watching videos and looking at pictures is enjoyable. Speaking of pictures, the camera on the 2E is pretty good. It comes with an 8-megapixel rear-facing camera with flash, and the stock camera app is easy to use with an intuitive interface. In general, photos come out sharp, but colors look a little off. This photo was taken at noon in auto mode, and it has a faint blue hue to it. This photo was also taken at noon, but in day mode, and it has a distinct orangish hue to it. On screen you'll find a shutter button, a record button, an HDR toggle, a turbo toggle, and buttons to access different menus. Turbo mode snaps photos in rapid succession for as long as you hold the shutter button, and once it's released, it lets you choose from the nicest ones. Photos in turbo mode look less clear than regular ones, but if you need to capture an action shot at just the right moment, the reduction in quality could be worth the trade-off. There's also a 2-megapixel selfie camera, if you're into that kind of thing. All the other features you'd find on higher-end phones are here too, like panorama, HDR, and low light. And the 2E's processor is fast enough that it even lets you apply Instagram-like filters in real time. That processor is an Intel Atom 1.6 GHz dual-core with hyper-threading. It does an adequate job of running ASUS's Zen UI plus the Android interface relatively smoothly, although you will see the occasional hiccup here and there. Games like Temple Run 2 run smoothly with no stuttering at all, except for when you first launch the app, but that might be due to the mere 1 GB of RAM the 2E comes with. And that's really the weakest point on this otherwise excellent phone. 1 GB is just barely enough to run the resource-intensive Android operating system on top of all of the other apps you'll be using alongside of it. Apps are slow to load, and switching between certain apps is an exercise in patience. The launcher app had to restart every once in a while too, if too many heavy apps were running in the background. Some of those apps are pre-installed AT&T bloatware, 15 in total, and there's no way to uninstall them without root access. And as far as the author could tell, there is no method to gain root access yet for this phone. I've tried Kingo, Towel Root, One-Click Root, and scoured the XDA forums, all to no avail. To help mitigate this issue with RAM, ASUS's Zen UI has a button in the notification center that kills unused apps to free memory. It works well, but the fact that you have to use this app in the first place is a little annoying. Also annoying are the hardware buttons. Though the phone is slim enough to fit nicely in your pocket, it's a lot taller than most. So it's kind of a mystery as to why ASUS decided to place the power button in the hardest to reach spot on the phone, the top middle. Another mystery is why the volume rocker is on the back of the phone. It sits flush with the back cover, so it's hard to find in the first place, but once you do, it's just as awkward to actually use it. On top of all of that, instead of graphical Android buttons, ASUS opted for capacitive ones that aren't backlit, so it's impossible to see them in the dark. But despite these awful hardware buttons, the build quality is good. You wouldn't be able to tell the phone cost only $120 just by holding it. There aren't any gaping seams between components, and the white plastic shell is matte, so it feels nice and hides fingerprints too. Unfortunately, that back cover creaks when pressure is applied, and that takes away from an otherwise solid phone experience. It does also come with an extra shell in matte black. The back is curved to help the phone feel thin and lets it fit nicely in your pocket, and the display is covered in Corning Gorilla Glass so it feels smooth and should resist cracks and scratches. Above that display is an indicator light that tells you when you're receiving messages, phone calls, or when your battery is low. Battery life is good. It'll last you a full day with moderate use. This phone is all about compromises. For every one thing it excels at, there's one thing it fails at. But despite these issues, this phone is a good buy at only $120, so long as you're interested in using AT&T's network. You can pick up one today at Walmart, Target, Best Buy, or at an AT&T store.